Hello, I'm Steve Paxton. I'm here with a new video tutorial. This is going to be on how I process some of my urban portraits. I've had quite a few people email me asking how I'm processing the portraits that I took from the Lisa These series, these urban portraits. This is just a few from that collection, and so I'm going to walk you through some of the steps that I take. I'm not going to be able to show you all the different things I do. Quite frankly, there's quite a few different ways you can process these images, and every one of these images gets processed slightly different, and there's really no formula for how I do it. But there are a couple things that I do pretty regularly with most of these shots, and so I'll walk you through some of those steps. We're going to take a look at this particular shot here, and show you how I process that. This is the fully processed version of the shot. This gentleman came up to me while I was photographing a group of homeless folks, and was just standing there and quietly watching. And after a pause in the action, I asked him if I could take a few photos, and he nodded and stepped up front and allowed me to take several photos, and then quietly walked away. And so I don't know his name, but this particular image is actually one of my favorites. And so let's take a look at the before. So this is the shot as it came out of Lightroom. I made a couple minor adjustments in Lightroom. You can see that there's a vignette around the image, and that came from Lightroom. Some of the things we're going to do with this shot is we're going to increase that vignette, and I'm going to try to make the image stand out a little bit more. I want the portrait to kind of jump off the background a bit there. So we're going to darken the background a bit. We're also going to lighten the eyes. And let's go ahead and take a look at the process version of the shot here. You can see the eyes here. A couple things going on with the eyes. The eyes are lighter, and I also added this highlight here. I think highlights are important. And as you can see in the before shot there, the eyes are somewhat lifeless, and so I want to improve that just a bit. And then we're also going to walk you through how to make the portrait slightly more gritty. I like to really add some texture to the beard and the mustache and areas on the face that have lots of wrinkles and that kind of thing. So if you can see here, we have some areas around the eyes and the beard that we're gonna apply kind of a gritty effect to, and I'll show you how to do that. So let's go ahead and get started. First thing I'm going to do is start working on the eyes. And so what we'll do is we're going to go ahead and just drag the background layer and create a copy of that. And with that copy selected, I'm going to select screen as my blending mode. And so that lightens the entire image. And if you press and hold the Alt key or the Option key on the Mac while clicking on the Add Layer Mask icon, we'll create a black layer mask. And we are going to want to show you. You can go to Layer Mask, and Reveal All or Hide All to create that layer mask as well. But I like to use shortcuts. So now with that black layer mask, what's happened is that screen effect that we just applied has been hidden. And so if I turn that off, what am I trying to do here? There we go. If I turn that off by holding the Shift key, that's the screening effect that we just applied without the mask. So black layer mask hides that screening effect. Now what we're going to do is we're going to grab a white paintbrush. So I got my paintbrush tool here. I got my white selected as my foreground color. I'm going to zoom in on the eyes. Right click with my mouse to make sure that the hardness is turned down. And then I'm going to just come in here and I'm going to paint in the eyes, just like that. So all I'm doing is applying that screening effect, that blending mode effect, just to the eyes using layer mask. And I can use the X key to switch back to black and fine-tune the transitions. So now I'm back on white with my foreground color, and I'm working on his left eye, just like that. And I'm using a nice fuzzy brush to have a nice soft transition. So now we've lightened his eyes a bit. Let's take a look at the before and the after. I mean, you could really ramp that up if you wanted to, and you could also tone that down. To ramp it up, just duplicate this layer. Just drag it down here and duplicate it. See, we just ramped it up. And then you can even fine-tune that a bit by turning down the opacity. Now this effect can make your image look really fake super fast if you're not careful. So just be careful with it. Try not to overdo the lightening. I think I'm just going to leave it at that for now. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to do the highlight, and this is fairly easy, especially since we got a highlight on his right eye. So all I'm going to do is clone that in and create the highlight on his left eye. So we're going to create a new layer, and I'm going to go over to the clone tool here. I'm going to zoom in nice and tight here, and I'm press and hold the Alt key or the Option key on the Mac, and I'm going to make this my target, and I'm going to click, so that's my target. I'm going to come over to this right eye, and if you notice, the highlight is right up there in the kind of the upper right portion of the eye. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to duplicate that over here, just like that. And all I'm doing is just a couple clicks with the mouse, and there we have the highlight. Really don't have to go too crazy with it. The idea being is just to add a little bit of life to the eye. So we've got our highlight. Now let's quickly rename this. I don't want to lose track of what we're doing. And could rename this too. You really do want to make that a habit as part of your workflow. Otherwise, you'll go back to images that you processed years ago and basically have no idea what you did. So renaming your layers is really going to help you. Next thing we're going to do is I'm going to create a merged layer, and you can do that by real easily. You can do that by going up to Layer, and actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go Alt Control Delete E as an Edward key. That would be Control. I'm sorry, for the Macintosh, that'd be Command Option Shift and E as an Edward key. And if you click all those keys together, it's going to create a merged layer, just like we did here. And I'm going to rename this High Pass Color, because what we're going to do, that new layer is going to go up to Filter, and we're going to go down to High Pass. Now this really depends, the settings here really depends on the resolution of the image. I'm using a pretty high resolution image here. It's almost a 13 megapixel image with a Canon 5D. So I'm just going to plug in a number that works real well for me. I really encourage you to play with that on the radius. I'm going to go with 20, and then I'm going to change my blending mode to color. And what we did is we just really almost turned this into a black and white, but we've toned down the color quite a bit. And we don't want to lose all the color, so I'm going to go to the opacity slider here, and I'm going to turn it down to just about where I like it, about 50%. So I'm really looking at the background here, because what I'm going to do now is going to create a new layer mask, a white layer mask. I'm going to grab a black paintbrush, because we're going to paint out the areas that we don't want that blending mode change to color to affect, and that would be the face. Whoops. Should grab our paintbrush first. There we go. I'm using a nice soft fuzzy brush, and I really don't want that effect that I just applied, where we've desaturated the image, to affect his face. I really want him to have some life in his face, and I'm going to turn the opacity up just a bit. So I really want the background to really fade out and not be distracting to the portrait. So we've got just a hint of color there, and we've left all the color in his face. And if you wanted to, you could come in and you could paint it into his coat as well, and his hand. But essentially, I want him to jump off the screen a little bit, and or jump off the picture a little bit. And I want his portrait really to be the central focus, and the background to really be secondary. So that, I think, helps to do that. So again, we're going to go Control, Alt, Shift, and E as an Edward key to merge those layers. And on the Macintosh, again, that would be Command, Option, Shift E as an Edward key. And we're going to rename this high pass, and we're going to call this hard light, because that's going to be the blending mode that we're going to use. So we'll go up to filter, right back to where we were with high pass. Again, this radius setting is going to be really subject to the resolution of your image. I'm going to go with 10. It's a fairly high resolution image, and I'm going to change my blending mode to hard light. Now, if I show you the before and the after, you can see that's really sharpened the image. Basically, what this does is over-sharpen the image. And let me zoom in just a bit here. So the before and the after. That just really does a heavy-duty sharpening on the image, and you wouldn't want to apply that effect to the entire shot. You can also use, I want to point out, soft light to do just a slightly scaled down version of that same effect. But I really want to, that effect, the hard light effect that I'm getting. So we're going to go ahead and leave it at hard light. And we're going to go ahead and make a black layer mask. So I'm going to press and hold the Alt or the Option key and click on the Add Layer Mask icon here. So again, with the black layer mask, we're hiding that effect. I'm going to use a white paintbrush and a nice soft fuzzy brush, and I'm going to come in here and I'm just basically going to paint in where I want this to affect. And again, as I mentioned earlier, we just want to make this affect some of the facial hair, the eyebrows. I'm going really quick here. I think it really helps show some of the details in the face. And there's our before and our after. And again, you can use the opacity slider to turn that effect up or down. But actually, I want to turn it up, so I'm going to duplicate that layer. And we have 2 of those now, and that might be just a little bit too much, so I'm going to turn that down just a hair. And that's just about where I like it. Now we're just about done. Last thing I'd like to do is create a stronger vignette, and it's really, again, to make the portrait the central focus of this image. I really want, almost like he's coming out of the light. I want it to look as if the light is coming out and landing just on his face, and everything around him is a little bit darker. So I'm going to create a new adjustment layer for solid color. This is my favorite way to create a vignette. I love the control I get. I'm going to use black as my color. Once I got that black color, I'm going to come over to the gradient tool, and I'm going to use the radial gradient here. And we're just going to go ahead and find the center of that image, just like that. And you want to watch this reverse box here. It needs to be unchecked. But you see what we've just did there? We've created a pretty strong vignette there around it. And actually, it's not strong enough for me, so I'm going to actually not pull quite as hard. There we go. That's exactly what I'm looking for. And now what I'm going to do is turn the opacity down just a hair, so you have control over that vignette just like that. And again, I don't want the vignette to affect his face, so I'm going to use a black paintbrush, and it's going to be a nice soft fuzzy paintbrush, and I'm going to just paint it out like that. Again, you want this transitional area to be really smooth. You don't want it to look like you're painting, so we're going to play with the opacity just a bit. And there's our before, and there's our after. And again, the idea was to make it look as if he was standing in a pool of light. And that's it. That's exactly how I processed it. We've lightened the eyes, we've added highlight to the eyes, we've added a nice vignette, we've done some texturizing to his face, and this is how I process my shots. Hopefully you're able to learn something you can use. I encourage you to really explore and play around with these blending modes, because there's just so many options available to you with all the tools that Photoshop provides and offers. I look forward to seeing you over at PaxtonPrints.com. Thanks for watching.